Mr. India. Hello, my Indo-Trinidadian. I bring you love from deep, deep, deep within me. Love meant to clear the hurdles of our history. But there is one thing we must never fail to understand. The African was the first to come here, then the Indian came second. And African toil and they labor. And they cried and they died under master. So when you celebrating the richness of your culture, you Africa, plenty more than you owe India. Cause the torture we went through is alien to you. The only contract we had was with death. The road you come and trod, made with African blood. Thank God that's now a historical silhouette. So celebrate your African brothers. Reach out and touch and make up this stagger. For all those who walk the plank, from whom culture was young, Mr. Indian man, it's time you tell the African dance. Oh, if Miss Europe had 2 yard boys in her service, and she emasculated the first one of the two, dehumanize, deculturize, and dismiss, make him sweat for no pay, he going to be blue. And when he escaped under fire, he quit the job and room. The next boy just stripped in with pay and passage to go home. Plus his food, his family, and his culture, and freedom to worship and together. The first boy must feel a double sense of deep hurt and target the latter who was shown a greater sense of self-worth. But we will never let them facts lead us into racial cracks. We will not succumb to the leanings of that era. We choose to look beyond recrimination, to stay away from all conflict and from fracas. So celebrate your African brother. Give him a front seat in your Diwali Naga. Hello, Mr. India. Hello, my Indo-Trinidadian. I bring you love from deep, deep, deep within me. Love meant to clear the hurdles of our history. But there is one thing we must never fail to understand. The African was the first to come here, then the Indian came second. And African toil and they labor. They cried and they died under master. So when you celebrating the richness of your culture, go Africa, plenty more India. The culture we through to you, the open track we had. and she emasculate the first one of the two. Dehumanize, deculturize, and make he going to be blue. And when he escaped on the fire, he quit the job on road. The next boy just strips in with pay and passage to go home. Plus his food, his family, and his culture. And freedom to worship, I must feel a double sense of deep. We will never will not succumb to the leaning era. We choose to be recrimination to stay away from all conflict and from fracas. So celebrate your equality. Don't bother to pull rank. Money in the bank, Mr. Inaman. It's time you tell the African thanks. Oh, apart from a very small group of demanding who went back home to Gambia and Senegal. All the ex-slaves, they remain in Trinbago, adopting diverse modes of living and survival. But whereas the land for the Indians spelled prosperity, for Africans it just means more pain and misery. And the curse of the land was so vivid that for some even work was blacklisted. So when Indian became this multiple landowner, it's because African was running from their anathema. We're not lazy, that's the truth, and we're very brave too. We love to sing, we love to dance, but don't you be fooled. For we true identity, just look beyond slavery for invention that no slavery can overrule. So celebrate your African brother. From when he started, he's a big, big time achiever. He embraces you in his rank. So if we must be frank, Mr. Indian man, it's time you tell the African dance. Isn't it so hot that? Here, I'm boom, bam, bam, My love for you is not about your food or your woman, although such things form a lesser part of the mix. It just makes sense in this captive situation to build upon with historical dynamics. So don't be so quick to jump at a calypso or 100 songs. If you praise, take the holistic view. Don't be caught using race as a divider. And you are black, 'Cause Indian is not a color. Don't you hide under the guise of education and use university to cause no great division. The richness we both share because we end up here. Neither one will enjoy back in we homeland. We're very polyglot, plenty flavor in the pot. The sum total of each other's contribution. So celebrate your African brother. He helped to break the caste system in India. The Ganges water I drank, so meet me on Nile River bank, Mr. Indian man. It's time you tell the African tongue. My love for you is not about your food or your woman, although such things form a lesser part of the mix. It just makes sense in this captive situation to build upon with historical dynamics. So don't be so quick to jump at a calypso or two. 100 songs in the praise, take the holistic view. Don't be caught using race as a divider. And you are black, 'cause Indian is not a color. Don't you hide under the guise of education and use university to cause no great division. The richness we both share because we end up here. Neither one will enjoy back in we homeland. We're very polyglot, plenty flavor in the pot. The sum total of each other's contribution. So celebrate your African brother. He helped to break the caste system in India. The Ganges water I drank, so meet me on Nile River bank, Mr. Indian man. It's time you tell the African tongue. Oh, lambambo, lambambe, lambambo.
Hey, hi. Yes, yes. Brother Roy Lewis, the Mystic Prowler, born in St. Kitts. Of course, like so many of the bards of the music, they cut their teeth in Trinidad. Uh, the Mystic Prowler, 1998, Calypso Monarch. Mr. Indian man, tell the African tongues. Teach them, teach them, teach them, teach them. The mighty Duke said, teach the children, teach the children. A lot of history there, a lot of history. Indian is not a color. We, oi, oi. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. I just want to thank the ancestors that when we left Africa, we left with riches. We left with science. We left with technology. We left with education. And 500 years of oppression has not dimmed those flashing lights in our existence. I thank the ancestors and I thank God that I am not afraid to play a calypso like that. I thank the ancestors and I thank God that I am not afraid to say I am an African. I thank the ancestors and I thank God that I don't have to look over to my Indian friends and worry that when I wear my dashiki, they will think that I am a racist. I thank God. And I thank the ancestors for mustering the courage in me that I can stand before my people, all of my people, Africans, Indians, Amerindians, all of us Guyanese, and say with my eyes open and without an ounce of embarrassment, without 1 ounce of guilt, that I can say I am African. And when I say I'm African, when I affirm my Africanness, I do not care who is offended. And frankly, I don't care how many votes I lose. I will not trade my identity, my heritage for anything, anything, anything. And if my last legacy to my country is that I try to instill in my African brethren and sisters, do not be ashamed to be African. When I die, please you all write on my tombstone that I instilled in African people not to be ashamed of their blackness. Write that on my tombstone. I've already told my family that. And I'm telling you all here, that is part of the legacy I want to leave for my country. I'm tired of people trying to make us as African people ashamed to say we're African. That even when we say we're African, we have a but behind. A but. Every other racial group, ethnic group in this country, in this world, say who they are without looking over their shoulders. Good evening to you all and welcome to Politics 101. Another warriors with me tonight. We have always been warriors. Long before slavery, we were warriors. Because it's human to be warriors. Whether we are declaring war against the pestilence, whether we were declaring war against rabid nature. It is human to be warriors. And we've always been warriors. That is why we've conquered nature so that mankind can live in a habitat that is befitting of human beings. That is why we cleared the wild coast in Guyana to make it habitable for our brothers and sisters who came after, that they will not have to live in the swamps. We were and are always warriors. Good evening to all of you. Yes, write on my tombstone that I instilled in the African, do not be ashamed to say that you're African. My daughter asked me a couple of days ago why I'm always joyful, given all the terrible things that we have to confront on a daily basis in Guyana. And I told her I'm enjoying what I've done, what I'm doing. I've always enjoyed it. And I'm enjoying it more today, you know. I really enjoyed it when I heard them get up at the United Nations in front of the world and say that they're the gatekeepers in Guyana who call them lick bottom and slave catchers and house slaves. And I say, it's me you all talking about? You all gone to the United Nations to complain about me? I love it. I did not invent the term slave catchers. I did not invent the term house slaves. I did not invent the term lick bottom, but I made them popular, especially lick bottom and slave catchers. I made them popular in Guyana. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm a happy man. I get under the skin and expose them. Oh, cry a baby. David Hines calling me lick bottom. United Nations, you all have to have police and these gatekeepers. I am a gatekeeper against those who would love to push Africans back through the gate of enslavement. Yes, I am a gatekeeper. And I'm glad you all went to the United Nations and tell them that we are calling you all slave catchers and lick bottom and other names. And what I love about it is that those of you who are Christian and you all can bring to say lick bottom, say slave catcher. Nothing unchristian about that. There's not a bad word. We give you all a choice. Right? If you don't like say lick bottom, say house slave. We get them where we want them. We are the only delegation that went to the United Nations. Of all the countries in the world, our government went at an African forum and talk about what they're doing for non-Africans. Are we Depanam? Our delegation was the only delegation in the world where part of them went there to tell African people that people are calling them slave catchers. They're talking to African people. African people know who slave catchers are. And what the African people opened their eye big and was he saying to them, you all must have been catching slaves. Damn fools. And that is why Vincent Alexander had to say, the time for polite silence is over. We tell the world that they're oppressing Africans in Guyana. Let the chips fall wherever they may. They always got plan for me, you know. They always got plan for me. And part of what happens is that we expose them. And I'm bringing in Apostle London. I want you all to listen to this. I want you all to listen to this, and you all will say, thank God for yourself. Thank the ancestors for you. And thank the ancestors that people like Alexander and David Hines and Apostle London and Eric Phillips and the rest of us exist. Because their plans we are upsetting. I want you all to listen to this.
About this one getting a contract, B get no contract, that one getting this. You get me? Even at a mundane level, there's this action. So the PNC cannot write off that. And I was very disappointed when my good friend Nigel Hughes, who on your program I spoke about, started out by going to Lenora Market, where he met a multiracial crowd, went back, I think, to Monaco, met a multiracial crowd. Since then, seem to have abandoned multiracial mobilization. You get me? I don't think we could move forward in Guyana without multiracial mobilization.
It's commonsensical, Ravi.
But obviously, common sense is not that common. And because I see neither the PPP, the PNC, nor the AFC are going in that direction, and yet they're cussing out the PPP, who is moving in that direction. You see, as a Hindu, at a philosophical level, we are taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to mama guy black people is not the issue. They very well might be. I don't know what's in their minds.
Right.
But their action, if they can empower black people as they're doing right now, objectively, that will set up its own dynamic that they can control, the whole dialect. But obviously, common sense is not that common. And because I see neither the PPP, the PNC, nor the AFC are going in that direction, and yet they're cussing out the PPP, who is moving in that direction. You see, as a Hindu, at a philosophical level, we are taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to mama guy black people is not the issue. They very well might be. I don't know what's in their minds.
Right.
But their action, if they can empower black people as they're doing right now in Guyana without multiracial mobilization, it's taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to mama guy black people is not the issue. They very well might be. I don't know what's in their minds.
Right.
But their action, if they can empower black action, and yet they're cussing out the PPP, who is moving in that direction. You see, as a Hindu, at a philosophical level, we are taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to mama guy black people, it's not the issue. They very well their minds.
Right.
But their action, if they can empower black people as they're doing right now, objectively, that will set up its own.
Ha! Y'all hear it? Y'all hear it for yourself? Good evening, Apostle, you heard it?
I surely did. Good evening, and good evening to all of your viewers as well. I surely did.
For the audience who don't know Mama Guy mean it's a Trinidad word for fooling.
Correct.
It doesn't matter whether the PPP want to fool black people. And an African sit down there. Yes, that's a safe catcher. I've always defended that one. And say, I don't believe that. But tonight, that man sat down there, a black man in between two Indians. And one Indian man saying, the PPP may well be fooling black people, but that doesn't matter. And another Indian man the next side shaking his head, and a black man sit down there with a jacket wrong and saying, yes. Apostle London, Apostle, can you believe what you are there? Let me let you.
Dr. Hines, greetings to you again, and to those of you who are viewing, greetings. I'm becoming more and more troubled with each passing day. Given the events that are unfolding in our country and even abroad, given the forum that I'm sure we would speak to in a moment. But to see Ravi Dev display his typical nature is unsurprising. But to watch Lino Craig sit in that environment, and probably maybe further in the program, he told Ravi something, or later on afterward, he said, but Ravi, you know what you said there wasn't okay. But based on what I saw, I am troubled that the likes of Lino, given his intellectual capacity, would sit and hear someone speak to an entire ethnic group. An entire group of people. He didn't say, well, if I'm a guy, you know, it's not a big deal. He put all of us in the same bracket to say that if the PvP are fooling all of us, it's not a problem. As long as the actions demonstrate that they're trying to make us develop, or the terms they would use, lead a better life, and to be better off, it doesn't matter even if they're fooling us to give us the impression as though they're not racist. And Lino would agree to that. Lino must have had a mental block, a blackout moment, a moment whereby he just lost all consciousness of what was being said, or he was distracted by someone on the road, because I cannot see one of Lino Craig's intellectual capacity sitting there beside a known racist in Ravi Dev. And I'll say it, because his behavior speaks to that. The way he speaks so condescendingly about African descendants tells me what he is. I've given it in that way. And to see Lino not have even the gumption, as they would say, to say, stop it, Ravi, you're pushing it too far now. We are not supposed to sit back and say that because your actions display that you intend to have us develop, but your intentions are ill, then we should negate the intentions. That is just catastrophic, to say the least.
And my brother, you know, my definition of the slave catcher is not just the ones who go into the communities and go and hand some money to a little black boy or a little black girl, put on a jersey and then bring them. It's when you sit and you hear narratives like that and you do not say stop it. You shake your head and you endorse it. What you are doing there is that you are intellectually catching slaves.
Yeah.
Because that's what Ravi Dev is into when you are endorsing it. And that is why I'm saying I do not believe people like Leno Craig and these guys believe that black people are inferior. I don't believe that but once you cross that plank, you automatically, even without knowing it, you begin to subscribe to a narrative and an ideology that says that African people are inferior.
It is.
Go ahead, brother.
Sorry. It is true, Dr. Hines, and I have long said, and I remain even greater convinced now, even more convinced now, that in order to function efficiently in the PPP civic as an African descendant, I have to dislike my people.
Yes.
I don't have to say it, but I have to do it. Because when I see certain ills being meted out to African descendants, if I'm in the PPP, I cannot speak to it with a degree of passion as required. I'm convinced about that right now. Because Leno will show me again that people can say whatever they want to say about African descendants, and you just cannot upbraid them. You cannot chastise them. You cannot say to them, you need to cut out the nonsense. None of that. He cannot even speak as though he were a proud descendant of an African man. He cannot do that. To exist in the PV Civic as an African descendant, I have to lose a sense of my Africanness.
Yes.
And become Guyanese.
Yes.
That's the bottom line.
Guyanese in the obscene way. Because
Correct.
you are a Guyanese, I'm a Guyanese, but we are a different kind of Guyanese.
Hence I said Guyanese.
Yes, Guyanese. And you know, I was listening to Paul Stowe's program today, and for the first time I heard this term, black in color only, Biko. When I heard Paul with it, he's a Biko. He was referring to his countryman, Minister Hamilton, who we will come to later.
Oh, my Lord.
And Paul says he's a Biko. So I said, boy, I never heard that one before. And Paul says, black in color only.
Yeah.
That is what, look, for those of you who are coming in late, for those of you who may have taken your eyes off the screen, let me play it back for you all.
Without motivational mobilization.
It's commonsensical,
but obviously common sense is not that common. And because I see this, neither PPP, the PNC, nor the PNC are going in that direction, and yet they're cutting out the PPP, who is moving in that direction. You see there, as a Hindu, at a philosophical level, we are taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to guide black people is the issue. They very well might be. I don't know what's in their minds. Right. But their action, if they can empower black people as they're doing right now, objectively, that will set up its own dynamic that they can control. The whole dialectic that Marx talk about.
And there is
you
something,
all, yes, go ahead,
Dr.
Apostle.
Hines, there's something that I want every person who calls themselves Christian in this country, because I don't call myself Christian. Christian is a description given to people who, it was actually derogatory in nature. I'm a saint of the Most High Yahweh, but I'm saying to you, those who call yourself Christian, you account for 55% of the religious demographic in this country. And I want you to hear me very carefully. Ravidev spoke to the Hindu
That's
ideology
right.
and he
That's right.
connected it to the PPP. I told you all that for the longest while, that the
Yes,
PPP is a Hindu party,
I
which is why
love you.
Irfan Ali's presence is a problem.
I love you, brother. I love you. Preach them. Talk it.
Let's
To
deal
God,
with the
say it
facts as
again.
they ought to be dealt with.
As I would tell my students when I hear something that blow my mind, say it again. Say it
I
again.
shall. Ravidev spoke to the PPP and he spoke to the Hindu ideology. Now, if you have any iota of common sense, he's therefore telling you plainly that the PPP is a Hindu party. Now, those of you Christians like Onish Waldron in the PPP, what do you say to that? Irfan Ali is not Hindu, which is why you cannot control the dynamics of the PPP. It has to be controlled by a Hindu person, and that's Bharat Jagdeo. So we have 55% of our population claiming to be Christian. And here's a man telling you plainly that the PPP is a Hindu group, and therefore they're governed by Hindu ideologies, which speak to a
Mm-hmm.
caste system. That's a
Mm-hmm.
part of Hindu ideology. It speaks to dominance over people. That's an ideology in the Hindu faith as well. It's the truth. Because the Brahmins who are the priests, and permit me to go here, please, are respected highly. So when Ravi comes to tell you that, listen, according to our ideology, even if we're making a fool of you, as long as our actions are deemed acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
forget about the foolery part of it.
That's
Because
right.
according to our religion, it's okay to make a fool of you people.
Thank you. Thank you.
May the pastors arise and address this, please.
You all hear it? You all hear it? It's okay to fool black people because in the Hindu ideology, black people are the lowest caste. So it doesn't matter if you fool them. It doesn't matter if you fool them. And Ravidev is not a jackass. He knows
No.
the PPP is fooling black people, but he's saying to black people, take fooling because that's part of who you are. That is why so many of us have had problems with Booker T. Washington's ideology.
Mm-hmm.
We say, lay down your bucket where you are, accept your second-class citizenship. And I've heard Ravidev repeat that on that very program there today. You all understand what we are into? Apostle made the linkage. This is not Ravidev speaking as an individual. This is Ravidev speaking as an ideologue.
Yeah.
He is giving it, and look, let me say this. Part of why Ravidev got a problem with people like me or people like Pastor, it's not that we gonna get 1 million vote, we gonna get 3/4 the black vote. That's not why they fear us. They fear us because we are also ideologues like them. But we are ideologues to liberation of black people. Our ideology is grounded in the liberation of black people, not the fooling of black people. And that is why Ravidev cannot get off people like me. He knows that I am not going to get 90% of black people vote. He knows that. What he knows is that people like me and Apostle will get into 90% of black people's minds at the level of culture and ideology. That's what they know. And that is why they want to banish us. Because he knows that that's what he's doing. He makes that linkage between Hinduism and what the PPP is doing to black people. You all heard it here tonight. You all heard it here tonight. You all heard it here tonight. Apostle London, in the same vein, you obviously must have been paying attention to what's going on in New York.
Yes.
Forum there. You heard the minister, another one like Brother Leno. They send him with a basket to go and fetch water at an African forum where a government is supposed to go there and talk about what it has done to meet the mandate of the United Nations.
Sure.
And there he goes to talk about what the government is doing for the country, which is in effect what his government is doing for non-Africans. Because if you can't say what they're doing for Africans, you must be telling them what they've done for non-Africans. And he stood there and talked about that. Your response to that, my brother?
Dr. Hines, I've been overjoyed too and refreshed when I heard Mr. Vincent Alexander speak. And I'm going to Joe Hamilton by addressing what Vincent Alexander would have done.
Yes.
Vincent, in that forum, being aware of the magnitude of that forum, stood and dealt with his countryman, but his ideological adversary. And that would bring me back to what Hamilton did. And what Hamilton has done is repeat what I call the PPP's culture regarding African descendants. They have never on any occasion sat at the forum and truly addressed the plight of the African descendant. Joseph Hamilton, I don't credit him with much intelligence. So what he failed to acknowledge is that at the United Nations level, the United Nations, not one nation, the United Nations agreed that African descendants across the world have been treated in a manner that was unjust, unfair, and inequitable. To suggest, therefore, that Guyana is this unique place where African descendants have not had that experience is already a travesty on the part of Joseph Hamilton. And so when he then began to speak, I recognized that Hamilton he must have had to submit his speech to someone not of African descent, and someone who would have had to say, well, this is acceptable, or say this, or may have been given the speech and say, this is what you have to say. Because they chose one of the least relevant of all African descendants in the PPP. They chose one of the least important, one of the least influential in the PPP. They chose one who just says just about anything he's told to say to go and represent the People's Progressive Party, not the plight of the Africans or the plan for the African descendants. He went to represent, in a defensive posture, what he feels would have been the People's Progressive Party showing that they really care about the African descendant. And Joseph Hamilton made a mockery of our experience. And by extension, he included himself in that experience. Because remember, apparently he forgot, that when we were on the plantations in the lands of our fathers, they had to say, in many cases to live, Master was a good man. Master is a nice man. Whatever Master wanted for them to say, they said it in order to survive. And that's exactly Joseph Hamilton's experience in the PPP. He cannot say anything that spoke to the truth about our experience in Guyana. Nothing.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And you're so right. Somebody had to write that fame. And I'm so glad. I love you. I love you, my brother. I love Vincent Alexander. I love you all. Listen, somebody had to write for him, because them big lady and big man teach us that when you don't get nothing in your head, people can put anything inside. So they put a word in there, then tertiary, which he couldn't pronounce. If he write them himself, and he know you can't pronounce tertiary, you won't put tertiary, because if you can't pronounce something, you're not going to put them for freedom. All right?
No.
So somebody put torture in there. He can't pronounce torture. Even if he see torture 100 times after now, he gonna call it territory. Right. Poor Joe. Poor Joe. Poor Joe. And you're so right. I am sure they had a more competent because in
Right.
the PPP. But they chose one of the dimmest lights and pushed torture in front of his territory. He's not a tight tongue man, but say tongue
No.
tight. He don't
No.
stammer. You got say stammer, he stammer. He tongue not tight, he don't stammer. Territory. Are you laughing? Because he deserves to be laughed at.
Yeah.
And Leno, this is what I mean when I say call people like you slave catchers. It is not that you will go to the street corner with a bag of money and catch slave. I don't think you will do that. I don't think you believe that black people should be caught. But when you do what you do and you cross over and exercise your democratic right to cross over and go to the people, as your democratic right.
Yeah.
But having exercised your democratic right, that is your action, according to Ravi Dev. Having exercised your action, you have to sit down there and hear people calling your people fools. Because if you say you're fooling people, it's because they're fools.
Correct.
Ravi Dev is in effect saying from the Hindu ideology, black people are fools. And you sit there, yes, yes, yes. That is my broad definition of a slave catcher. And that is why you're a slave catcher. That is why you're a slave catcher. And I've been defending you because I hoped that you would defend yourself. But tonight, you sat there for all the world to see. Like Mr. Hamilton, you expose yourself as the quintessential slave catcher. Not because you were born a slave catcher, but because of your action, the choice you make. And it's your choice, Leno. It's your choice. I will never deny you that choice. Neither Apostle or myself belong to the Black Party.
No.
We don't belong to the Black Party, and you have a right not to belong to the Black Party. But Apostle or David Hines would not sit down and see a Ravi Dev say what he said. I would box him, not physically, but I would box him down with my intellectual rebuttal. That is what I would do. And you sat there and you said yes. Yes to your new master. And you want black people must emulate you, Leno? Bag your face.
Yeah, because Dr. Hines,
yes.
We have got a problem in this country in that there's a transactional relationship when it comes to the PPP and African descendants.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll address Anil Nandlal on another broadcast of mine. Mm-hmm. There's a transaction in place, and it covers Leno Craig, it covers Hamilton, all of them. The transaction removes from these people the true sense of patriotism. There's no one with whom I've spoken to in the PPP who happens to be of African descent who can honestly tell me one ideological conviction they have regarding the PPP. Not one of them. Mm-hmm. It is always transactional. They cannot even speak to policies with which they agree. It is transactional. Because we are gaining something, because we are getting money, and that's what it comes down to, then we are in the PPP. It is nothing about that they agree with what they're doing, that they're convicted by the tenets of the PPP, and none of that. It's always about a transaction. And because of that, patriotism is really in peril in Guyana. And it requires a very conscious, aggressive approach. That's why I am so refreshed when I think about Vincent Alexander. Because you cannot be nice when it comes to certain things anymore as an African descendant. You have to be honest. Even if it has to hurt somebody's feelings, be honest about it. We are in trouble because there are people who have the opportunity to be patriotic, but it comes to the price of a transaction. And that's what you're seeing in these fellas. There's a transaction involved. They have something to gain. And it's not the value of an African man.
is not the value of an African man. My brother, we had how many delegations? You had ERC led by an Indian man.
Mm-hmm.
APAD led and who spoke, a brother named Ali. I
Ali.
yes. You had the government and then you had IPADG. IPADG represents 78 African organizations. It's the only authentic organization that could speak on behalf of African. Even the government.
Correct.
The government was voted in by half of the population who are not Africans, the vast majority
Right.
of Africans. So that government is not competent to represent black people at a forum
No.
like that. All right? APAD, the less said about them. And so the only authentic organization there was IPADG, which is legitimately representing 70 other organizations, African organizations, and so forth. Yet, the government spent money to send the other 3 delegations there. Not to go there to say anything about Africans.
No.
Mr. Hamilton talked about gold scholarship. Now, if I were Mr. Hamilton and they send me to talk about gold, I would say, all right, you all talk about gold, but before you all send me there, you all fix gold. You
Correct.
all put a set aside, put a quarter of the gold scholarship for Africans. If you all say 55-60% of the gold scholarship is for Africans, I can go to the United Nations and defend that. If you all said 60% of the scholarship is to study in African or Black studies departments so that our people can go and get a master's in Black studies, a master's in African history, a master's in Black history, Black culture, so that they can come back and teach in the education system about Black studies and Black culture. Then I can go to the United Nations and say goal is benefiting the African community, because then goal would be meeting the United Nations agenda. It would be recognition for Africans. It will lead to intellectual development of Africans, and it would be satisfying the whole notion of integrating the African experience in our multi-ethnic society. So you could make goal without saying goal is for Africans alone. You can turn goal into something that Africans can benefit from directly.
Right.
Yeah, your comments, my brother.
Indeed, Joseph Hamilton and all the others who would have the hack from ERC and others, they were sent with a particular mandate, and that mandate evidently was not to represent the interests of the African descendants, and it was so glaring. So Hamilton could not be himself, although being himself includes being just duped and being silly for the PPP. But he couldn't even do that. He just had to stick to a particular script. And that script included things that would embarrass the PPP and him, as he rightly spoke to gold. Because if someone in the room from another African nation would have said, let me just investigate this gold thing about this man, where this man spoke, they would see that there's a scam involved. My daughter is a victim of this of same thing of Staffordshire University. So they could research what Hamilton was saying and prove that how could you say that goal was intended to, or it has a part of it plays into the development of the African person, when there is so much dishonesty, deception, and skullduggery involved in this gold scholarship in Guyana. So Hamilton went there to show that even when it comes to the African interest, the PPP would not be as meticulous to say that everything must be right and it must be so Afrocentric in many regards, or skewed towards the African descendant, because he knows that the PPP will do nothing to skew benefits to the African descendant. Nothing. If they say they're going to build a housing scheme for African descendants, the contractor will be an Indian man. The PPP cannot do anything to say that Africans will benefit overwhelmingly. And when I sat and I heard the young man Ali complaining, he traveled at my taxpayers' expense. I'd like to think so, to go all the way to New York to sit and say that people are calling African descendants slave catchers, and lick bottoms without saying that there's poetic license in this whole equation tells me everything about this little fella, Ali. And I listened to him. I actually recorded a clip because I played on one of my broadcasts for Ghanaians to hear that instead of saying that African descendants need to have certain benefits in the construction field, where it is now booming in Guyana, 2% cannot say that they are the top in reference to construction companies in this country. Are they given awarded contracts in the upper tier, upper 2%? But this fellow had to go to complain that people are calling African descendants derogatory names. Well, that's a problem. Because if you're going to call people derogatory names according to him, why is it happening? Let's get down to the bottom of many things and get down to the fact that if a government has to send you to the UN to complain about what Africans call each other, then that government has a problem. That's my philosophy. Because the conference is not about what we call each other. It's about what we've been through for these centuries that brought us to this place. And he could not even speak to that. Finally, Dr. Hines, I want to ask a question in the same light of those who went there and were sent by the PPP. If there were a conference for Indian descendants held in Malaysia or somewhere, would Jagdio, Anil Nandalal, and y'all send out of a party of 10, would you send 2 or even 1 African descendant to represent East Indian people? I leave that question in the air for his press conference on Thursday because he knows the answer. The
No,
PPP's hierarchy will never send an African descendant to speak on behalf of an Indian man. Never will he do that. They will never do it under any circumstance. Never. But they did it to us, though.
they did it to us. Some of you are asking for Mr. Alexander. Mr. Alexander was here last night, and he is going to be back tomorrow night. So you will get a chance for Vincent to speak and to answer. But we just want to register here tonight that we are so proud of Brother Vincent because he had the presence of mind. He would not have written that in his remarks before, but he had the presence of mind, and he has at heart the African cause, that he could pivot upon hearing his fellow African go there and let us down as African people, and to stand up before the world and to tell them the truth. And we were speaking there to Black people. We are the only delegation that is led by people who are not Africans, led by people who are phenotypically and culturally not Africans, and led by Africans who are Black in color only. Led by Africans who are Black in color only. Apostle, I know you have to go. It's that time, your closing thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. And I am certainly regretting the fact that I have to leave you because tonight I'm really, really, as they would say, being cliche, fired up regarding the situation. There's so much to be said. Hopefully you can join me on one of my broadcasts. I don't know how to fit you in reference to your busy schedule, but we need to address this because I would like to appeal to all African descendants in Guyana to take note of how you're being treated at this time and under which administration. Whenever the People's Progressive Party have an opportunity to do right by African descendants, they will inevitably do wrong because Ravi Dev had to understand what the ideology is. And if the ideology is not to do right by African descendants, they never can. But we as a people have every right to love ourselves enough to stand in any forum, any circle, and represent with pride and dignity who we really are. I will continue to advocate vehemently for African descendants like Vincent Alexander, yourself and others, to arise with an even louder voice, to let Guyana know that we can be a united people, a land of 6 people, united but understanding who we are individually. I will never, under any circumstance, dilute or deplete my sense of who I am to please any other ethnic group. If I have to be called the most terrible names in the world, including racist, which I normally am, I do not care. Because when I understand, even at the United Nations level, they recognize that those who look like me and those who look like us have suffered unlike any other group. It requires an honest view of who you are. Leno Craig, hopefully, before the night is over, you will give Ravi Dev a call or go live and tell him exactly what you think about him. Hack from ERC, you have another perfect opportunity to address the likes of Ravi Dev and his utterance because it's derogatory, it's disrespectful, and I do not expect this to last for another 24 hours. This has to stop. This has to stop. We are not the ball in the playground that you kick around. Again, Dr. Hines, I thank you, and I look forward to the likes of Vincent Alexander and others are rising to the top of the jar to say enough, and it's time for us to let you know how we feel about your behavior. Do well, and the pleasure is always mine to be here with you, my brother.
Thank you very much, my brother. And we can work out where I can appear on your program. Just
I look forward to it.
Just tell me a time, and I will make the necessary adjustment.
Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, Apostle London, a warrior. I will be on with Rickford Burke tonight to address some of these issues. For those of us who are joining us a little bit late, let us play for you. Let us play for you this shocking piece.
You can, I don't think we can move forward in Guyana without motivational mobilization.
It's commonsensical, Ravi.
But obviously, common sense is not that common. And because I see neither the PPP, the PNC, nor the CFC are going in that direction, and yet they're cussing out the PPP, who is moving in that direction. You see, as a Hindu, at a philosophical level, we are taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to mama guy black people is not the issue. They very well might be. I don't know what's in their minds. Right. But their action, if they can empower black people as they're doing right now, objectively, that will Lenore Market, where he met a motivational crowd. Went back, I think, to Monaco, met a motivational crowd. Since then, seem to have abandoned motivational mobilization. You get me? I don't think we can move forward in Guyana without motivational mobilization.
It's commonsensical, Ravi.
But obviously, common sense is not that common. And because I see neither the PPP, the PNC, nor the CFC are going in that direction, and yet they're cussing out the PPP, who is moving in that direction. You see, as a Hindu, at a philosophical level, we are taught it doesn't matter what your intention is. What matters is your action. So whether the PPP wants to mama guy black people is not the issue. They very well might be. I don't know what's in their minds. Right. But their action, if they can empower black people as they're doing right now, objectively.
Right. You all hear it there. It doesn't matter whether the PPP is fooling black people. It is Trinidad word for fooling. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Hindu philosophy says it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you fool black people or not, because black people, according to what Rafi is saying, are made to be fooled. And here is an Indian man saying that, making the linkage between the PPP action towards black people, towards the black community, linking it to Hindu philosophy. Another Indian man sit down, shaking the head, yes, yes, and an African man who is black in color only, sit down there shaking his head. When I talk about slave catchers, my brothers and sisters, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I am talking about. An African who goes and joins the PPP, which is his right. And nobody must deny anybody their right if they want to go and join the PPP. They go and exercise their right. But once they get into the PPP, they have to join in the denigrating of Africans, either by their silence or by doing it themselves. Oh, Vincent Alexander and David Hines are whining. When we are protesting, when they get over to the PPP, they call it whining. When they get over to the PPP, black people are lazy. They don't work hard enough. We heard one of them on this program actually say it. And I can go on and give examples where these guys haven't crossed over to the PPP. They're right. They're right. In fact, when you see them in action, thank God you say, let it go long. And we don't want them because you don't want that type on our side. I wish there is more democracy so that they can go, because that's where they belong, it seems. So they cry, oh, they want to trap black people. They got some black people. They don't need to be among their fellow black people. They really should go. We want to silence them. No. Go and expose yourself as you are doing. Expose yourself. And that is what I mean when I say slave catchers. You can catch slaves by physically going, give them money, going to them black villages, give them a contract for $1,000, a couple thousand, $100,000, and tell them put on a red jersey. That's one form of slave catching. Another form of slave catching is what Brother Leno is doing there, which is sitting down and allowing an Indian man, in the name of Hindu philosophy, saying that your people is okay to make them fools in exchange for a few pennies. And you sit there and you shake your head. That is another form of slave catching. Slave catching doesn't have one form. There are several forms of slave catching. When you go to the United Nations and speaking to black people, African people, at a forum that their interest is being represented, and you go there and say, my government doesn't have to do anything for black people. We do things for Guyana. That is a form of slave catching. That is a form of slave catching. So there are different forms of slave catching. Sisters and brothers, it is becoming clearer and clearer. I started the program by saying I'm enjoying myself. I've always enjoyed myself. Politics never got in the way of me enjoying myself. But I'm enjoying this because I know that people like myself is getting them, cornering them. As I say, I want you all to put on my tombstone when I'm gone, that at a particular point in our history, I stood firm and said black people must not be ashamed of saying that they're black and they're African. And that those black people who choose to cross the political divide must not be allowed to catch our people and take them into slavery. I am glad. I am enjoying what I'm doing. They say that how many votes can David Hines get? Man shall not live by bread alone. Man shall not live by bread alone. I did not get into politics just for votes. Just for votes. It is not only how many votes David Hines can get. It's how many Africans David Hines can influence not to allow themselves to be mama guide to be fooled, to be bought for a few pieces of rancid silver. I like where I have them. I like that they have to go to the United Nations and repeat slave catchers and lick bottom. I hope Brother Crow Calypso get more play. I didn't invent the term lick bottom. I didn't invent the term slave catcher. But in this time, the ancestors stirred me to put them again into the open space. I am so glad. I am so glad. You all write on my tombstone that I reignited the terms slave catchers and lick bottom. Write that on my tombstone too. They will have to deal with me in every waking moment and even when they're sleeping. Because in dealing with me, you're dealing with the defiant in the African Guyanese. The defiance in the African Guyanese. The defiant in the African Guyanese. We are defying you. We are defying you. And that is what people like myself represent. Oh, Indian people will not vote for any party that David Hines is part of. Well, they will vote for Mohammed. Even if they don't vote for any party that I belong to, they will vote for Mohammed. And you deal with Mohammed. They want Nigel Hughes to go to Lenora Market. They want Nigel Hughes to go to Monrepo Market. But when Nigel Hughes go to Box Market or Golden Grove Market, they cry down and say he's a racist. They want to direct the traffic in African Guyanese community and people like myself, not allowing them to because you all can't direct me. When I'm ready, I will go to Lenora Market. When the coalition take power at the next election, then I will go to Lenora Market. Because Indians would want to talk to me then and want me to talk to them then. You all believe I'm stupid? I will go to Lenora Market in my time. I will go to the Indian Guyanese community in my time. When power, political power is transferred after the next election, once they're free and fair. Once they're free and fair. I will then go to the Indian markets because Indians will want to talk to me then. I will no longer be an African racist then. How better? How better? I'll become better then. I know, I understand Guyana. But you all want Nigel to go to Lenora Market and Monrepo Market because you all want Mamagai. You all want Foolie. You all can't fool me. But you all think you all can fool Nigel, you know, because Nigel is polished and he's middle class and so on. You all always think that you all can fool black middle class people. I gonna go to my David. I just become extreme. I'm gonna become extreme when in the other direction, when we have power. And I hope that when the transfer of power happens, and people like myself and Vincent Alexander and Apostle London lobby the new government to take care of the structural problems among Africans, I hope you all don't call them racist. I hope you all don't call President Norton a racist or President Hughes a racist, whichever of them become president. I don't know. They're fighting one another fate. Someone of them gonna forget it. But I hope you all don't call them a racist when they answer our call to set aside a portion of the black scholarship, the gold scholarship, because we're going to take it and we're going to change the name from gold to something more uplifting. Nothing is wrong in giving scholarships, tertiary, not territory, by Pulauri Joe, tertiary. All right? Tertiary. We like tertiary education and we like the idea of scholarships. But we're going to look and we are going to divide the scholarships based on need. So some will have to go to Amerindians. They're probably more in need than Africans. And East Indians will get some too, based on need. So we are going to democratize the gold scholarship. And we are going to ensure that the Africans are going to study African history, African culture, so that they can come back and teach African people in the African education system, as I have done for 30 odd years. That is what we are going to do to the scholarship program. They're sharing out house lots and 40-something% to women. Is that a woman forum you're there at? It's a black. How many of the house that you give to Africa, you can't open your mouth and say, because you know it is not comparative to the numbers in the society. All those things, I hope when we take care of them. Look, as I have said, I think governments can take care of the ethnic communities without discriminating one against the other. That the African structural problems that prevent them from living out their true potential, that those can be taken care of by policies that do not discriminate against other ethnic groups. And I hope when we implore on the government to take care of that you all don't call the government racist. Because right now you are cussing how the coalition didn't do it. And the coalition didn't do this to black people. And the coalition, I hope when the next coalition do for black people, and you don't call them racist. Or you don't call them racist. So you all heard it here tonight. You all heard it here tonight. Ravi Dev said it. Hindu philosophy says it doesn't matter if you fool black people. It doesn't matter if you fool black people. Give them a couple of pennies and fool them. He sat there on the program with Dr. Leno Craig and Dr. Freddie Kissoon. I calling them doctor. They don't call me doctor. They don't call me doctor. They don't call me doctor. By giving them me doctor. I giving Freddie me doctorate. I giving Leno me doctorate. Dr. Leno Craig, Dr. Freddie Kissoon. You all said, you all don't gonna call me doctor. You all don't call me doctor. You all don't call me doctor. Me get enough doctor me can give you. And you take me on. I never stop you all from writing dissertations. Freddie went as far and he didn't write the dissertation. And it's not too late, Freddie. You can go back and write your dissertation. Leno, I don't know whether you write your own or not. I don't know. But you all don't call me doctor. And you all deliberate because before that, you all used to call me doctor. Now part of the state is that you all can't call me doctor because to call me doctor is to legitimize me. Well, I write dissertations. And Leno, take me doctorate. Freddie, take it. Dr. Freddie Kissoon and Dr. Leno Craig. From now on, that is what we'll call you all. bad-minded and jealousy does become part of people political action when they become desperate. When they become desperate. Sorry for them, but they don't be sorry for themselves. Dr. Peterkin, thank you very much. Dr. Peterkin says she gonna give them she on too. Yes. Thank you very much, my sister. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll be keeping company for a little while tonight with is who are going on tonight? Not Mark? No, not Mark. Brother Rick Ford. And tomorrow we'll be back here. Vincent Alexander himself will be here tomorrow night. Until I see you then, be good. Be good. And know that you all are not fools. Not fools. Not fools. You all cannot be Mama Guy because you all are strong people. Strong people.